Hi, I'd like to call this meeting to order, and Mr. Perkins will lead us in the pledge, and Mr. Clark will give us the invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, we're thankful for this opportunity we have to gather as the Show Low Unified School District Governing Board. We're grateful for the opportunity we have to discuss the needs of our school and of our students and our faculty and of our community. We pray that we will be inspired and enlightened as we discuss the needs of this district, that we will be able to be civil in our discourse and be able to come away with solutions to problems that are present in our district, and that we'll be able to put the best interest of the students and the faculty at heart, and that we'll be able to accomplish the goals that are set before us this night. We are thankful for the buildings in which we are able to meet and the conditions in which we're able to be under at this time in a peaceful environment. We pray that thou will please be with those people who are suffering from COVID and its effects. They will be able to feel thy love and relief, and that if that be thy will, that thou will help us to be able to overcome this pandemic and be able to move forward in a more healthy, better environment. And these things we ask in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll move to approve the agenda for tonight.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item 3.2, recognition of legendary staff.
Madam President, members of the board, if you would like to go up front, and we have one legendary staff that we would like to recognize this evening, and we're going to bring up Mrs. Hall to recognize. Mrs. Douglas, you do have to come forward.
There's no waiting. All right. If there's anybody in the room that doesn't know Heather, that's amazing. Heather's a 1993 graduate from Show Low. She's taught for 23 years, went to NAU and came back here, and has been in our district as a teacher for 22 years. She has been an 8th grade special ed teacher. She has taught kindergarten, pre-first, accelerated first, a reading specialist, and most recently is our instructional coach. She is loved by everyone who knows her and is well known as the person that will stop what she's doing and help everyone else. She wears many hats, and she spends the majority of the day helping teachers teach and students learn. Her colleagues would say she's a rock, a mentor, a friend, and a supporter. She is described by being big-hearted, hardworking, selfless, knowledgeable, and just downright wonderful. Her colleagues praise her. In fact, their praise was so positive, I wanted to share a few of the quotes with you, okay? One said, "There's nothing Heather doesn't do. She's an amazing teacher, mentor, and friend. She's able to use her experience to guide and grow new teachers, and at the same time, be an endless source of support for teachers. She always has kind things to say and a bag of chocolate to celebrate." Another one. "Ever since I joined the district, Heather has been a nonstop source of support and inspiration. I cannot imagine working at Whipple Ranch without her. On a personal note, she and her family have welcomed me to their Thanksgiving Day festivities for the past couple of years, since she knows I'm usually alone on that day. Her friendship means the world to me." Another one said, "I could get emotional talking about what this sweet woman means to me." I'm going to get emotional. "She started out as my mentor in teaching. She helped me write my very first lesson plan, and she has been one of my closest friends. She has the biggest heart of anyone I have ever met. I try very hard to model myself after her. Her love, patience, and compassion for students is so immense. She is always willing to lend a listening ear and is a leader that one wants to follow. She is constantly stretching herself to make others' burdens lighter. She is an unbelievable human, and I love her." Another said, "I do not know anyone at our school who does more than Heather Douglas. She is beyond legendary. She is heroically phenomenal. She is a help to everyone in need. I am so grateful I get to work with her." As you can see, Heather is an irreplaceable member of our staff and is truly loved and admired by all who know her. It is my pleasure to work side by side with her, and I appreciate her kind and patient manner. Thank you, Ms. Douglas, for being a big part of what makes Whipple Ranch a wonderful place to work. We love you. And all their comments are right here, so you can read them all.
Like we need to name this the Heather Douglas Award.
Mrs. Douglas, thank you. It was wonderful.
Okay, Mr. Housley, Superintendent Report.
Madam President, members of the board, I want to, Vanessa, are you running the show over there with? You can pull up the strategic plan. While that's being pulled up, I want to just kind of give you an overview of the last 9 weeks. I can't say enough about our staff. I think oftentimes as we move through the last 6 months, we've been faced with things that we've never experienced before. We don't even know how to respond to most of the things that come to us, whether it's in our daily lives or in our professional lives or whatever that might be. But I have to tell you that, even though we all might search for that easy button, try to find out where the easiest way to do things are, we really have had a roll up your sleeve attitude and get to work. And I want to just applaud all of our staff. I think we have done a great job. Just about 300 staff strong, and they all have really taken on the challenge that is presented by COVID in a new school year. I can't say enough. There are school districts today that still don't have kids in the halls and won't have them for the rest of the year. Schools around us that won't have them in their halls for all year. I'm glad that we've faced the challenge and we've gone about doing our work. And yeah, we've had our ups and downs. We had 5 weeks without any COVID cases. Over the last couple of weeks, we've had a few, 1 or 2 here and there. I want to report that those staff members are doing well. Several of them reported back to work this week after their timeout. And we've worked really close with the county health department to make sure that we're following those guidelines to keep people safe. And we have had a lot of staff members out of because they wanted to be cautious. They've gone and gotten tested, and the vast majority of those have come back negative. And we're happy about that, and we hope that we can continue to stay healthy and provide the services that we have. We just look to improve. To have athletics, to have the things that are going on, extracurriculars. We had a homecoming parade today, and standing there, it was brought to my attention by one of the principals. Today was what it means to be alive and working in a small town USA, right? We had the band, we had all the kids in the district around our little acreage right there watching the homecoming parade. And, some of those kids had some of the teachers that are still teaching kindergarten, first grade or wherever. And it was nice to be able to watch that happen. It's not happening everywhere in the world, but it's happening here. I'm glad that it is. I want to just review real quick our strategic plan. It's there. I don't know if Mel could pull that up onto the big screen, but there, thank you. A couple years ago, we took on the challenge of doing a 5-year plan. Some of you participated in that. Most of you did, participated in some aspect of the strategic plan. And I just want to give you an update of where we're at. I don't want to go too deep into it, but just let you know that we're still working forward on that plan and have things going. So just real brief, part of the strategic plan was to establish a vision and guiding mission statement, and that is there. Our vision of achieving excellence together, and we really value that mission statement. Students and staff in Show Low Unified School District aspire to maximize their potential in the classroom and extracurricular activities and within the community. Some statements were developed on what we believe. We are kind and empathetic and kind. We build hope in each other. We are committed to achieving excellence in ourselves and with those around us. Our schools are the keystones of our community. And why do we exist? To educate, develop, and nurture our students, to create a culture that is empathetic and kind, to promote excellence throughout the school community, provide a well-rounded education with a variety of learning opportunities, and to provide a safe and nurturing environment and a sense of belonging. There are some indicators of success that we laid out. I won't necessarily go into those, but there are some in there that we can refer to. But I do want to spend some time just on the identified targets. Over the course of the committee meetings, which included some teachers, some community members, school board members, administration. Over the course of those meetings, we met to discuss the needs of the district. These groups were mixed groups. Overall group size was small, but it was the first time we attempted this. And we would look forward when we go into reestablishing the next 5 years, those committees will just get larger and there will be greater participation. But we targeted K5, math and language arts, and 6-12 participation in character education was the focuses there. Math was one of the goals, and we have those listed there. Some key factors, we felt like we needed some number sense and practice in base 10, fraction forms, and then some initiatives that we have there. We've set math was set on aside for just a moment while we focused on the next goal, and that was reading. I think the sites really identified specifically K5 that was something that needed to have priority. And so last year, we needed a more systematic approach to include reading comprehension, vocabulary, phonics, phonemic awareness, vocabulary as part of a daily instructional plan. And so last year, a committee was brought together. Teachers reviewed at least 3. I know there were a lot of others that were discussed, but at least 3 it boiled down to 3 that had the most attention. And then last year, you approved the adoption of OpenCourt as our reading series. And they're currently using that in their classrooms today. So if you look at our timelines for that, research programs, materials, strategies to put in place, that happened last year. This year, we're implemented program strategies for comprehension and vocabulary, and those are things that we will take on this year. And then year 3, implement program strategies for fluency and vocabulary. We're hoping that at some scale that OpenCourt takes care of a lot of that, but we're going to continue to look at these things in our timeline. As far as the high school or secondary, we have transitions as one of our critical points. We have 5th to 6th grade transitions, 8th to 9th grade transition, and then seniors to post-secondary, whatever that looks like, and making sure we have good pathways for our transitions. Last year, Mrs. Clark and Mr. Marchant and their teams have spent a lot of time researching and figuring out what those transitions look like. Unfortunately, at the shutdown, we weren't able to practice them at the end of the year when the transitions would have happened, but plans were generated and put into place. Some initiatives that you'll see, and you probably have heard at the high school, we have the link crew, which is critical to the transitions. And especially from that 8th grade to the high school area. Mrs. Clark and her team put in some strategic planning around scheduling to ensure the 6th grade success. And then post-high school connections, college, career. And currently, the high school team being led by Dr. Taylor are working on Show Low Works, which is a workforce development program that's bringing community leaders and business owners together to provide opportunities for internships for Show Low High School students and White Mountain Institute students, transitioning them into the workforce, helping them with interviews and other things that they need to be successful, whether they choose to stay in that career path or leap into something else. And we have, there'll be a couple formal presentations coming up. There'll be one here in the next month to community leaders, and I've asked Dr. Taylor to bring that to the board also. That will probably happen either in November's board meeting or December's board meeting to share with you that Show Low work program. And we're excited about what that's going to provide. And then our academics were also identified there at the end. Build on existing and new pathways to graduation, consistent delivery of interventions, and align strategies and practices and vocabulary district-wide. And I know those three initiatives are being worked on at the building level, specifically in their PLCs and other things. Teachers are doing a great job from what I can tell on trying to consistently deliver their interventions to a consistent, be consistent in the delivery of instruction, and that's one thing that's going to happen. In our pathways to graduation, I think if a child wants to graduate from Show Low High School, there is a litany of options for them to graduate, and any one of those pathways that meets them where they are is a viable choice for them, and we're going to continue to develop those choices for them. So, Madam President, that's my report this evening, and I'd like to also invite, as part of our report, to come up. We had a teacher take on our McKinney-Vento intervention this year and did a great job on that, and we'd like to invite her up to give a presentation and report on that, if she will come up.
Nice. So my name is Ida Carpenter, and I was lucky enough, actually, I want to just say, Heather, congratulations. And she's so deserving as a parent and as a teacher, as a colleague, anyways. So I was really lucky. I got to had a grant this summer under Jamie Ramsey, and it was the McKinney-Vento grant. And how do I make this move?
You'll talk and they'll move it in the back or somewhere.
Look at me if I
Just magically happens.
Sorry.
Sorry. So the purpose of the grant was to provide support to the McKinney-Vento students and families during the COVID-19 pandemic. And if you're not familiar with what McKinney-Vento is, it's an act that provides rights and services for children and youth experiencing homelessness. And we did have 41 families in our district when at the start of the summer. There may be more now, but this was at the start of the summer that were identified. And as I started calling families, I started realizing a lot of families had moved. It's a transient population, but in the end, we had 34 families identified at McKinney-Vento in our district. I was able to contact each and every family to kind of get to see what their needs are during the pandemic. Some of them had been my students, and some of them I didn't know at all. So it was really nice to get to know these families that were in need at the time. So we were able, through Jamie's grant, we were able to provide food and meals delivery instead of just saying, hey, come to school and get a breakfast and a lunch. We were able to bring them to those families throughout the whole summer with Jeff Houston's help. We provided 17 students with food to their door, breakfast and lunch all summer long. And as we also were able to provide students with essential school supplies, backpacks, folders, papers, pencils, etc., and then Chromebooks to students that were in need that didn't have who had been quarantined. Then I was also able to do some wellness checks on kids, which was really nice. So some of the other services that the grant provided was there was one child in need of glasses, so we were able to get her an eye exam, and we were able to get her a pair of new glasses. Hygiene products were provided to 15 of the students, and then special services referrals were also given to students that were in need, which was really nice. So as we went throughout the summer, we were also able to provide tutoring services. We were able to have teachers who gave tutoring services up to 45 hours in person or online. And we started with 19 kids. By the end of the summer, we had 14, but I still felt like that was good because it's summer. And like I said, this is a really transient population. They had to complete 45 hours, between 36 and 45 hours of tutoring. And we were able to get the numbers down to 3 to 1. So we had 3 students with 1 teacher, all teachers from our district. We did pre-tests and post-tests and online diagnostics and personalized learning feature. And we were able to give them a comprehensive curriculum through IXL. And the teachers were able to prepare lessons and educational opportunities to students in need. They worked in small groups, one-on-one, and a few of them were quarantined. So whenever that happened, we were able to reach out to them online with the Chromebooks. And the teachers were fantastic. They did everything they could for the students. We monitored their growth, and we gave them a safe environment. In the end, we saw tons of growth. So we gave them an assessment at the beginning, and then after the 36 to 45 hours of tutoring, we gave them another assessment, and I was happy to say that all of them grew. There was one student in math who the scores ranged from 1 to 1,000, so it's not a percentage, but 1 to 1,000 from kindergarten to 12th grade. And in math, one of the students went from a 60 to a 110, which was great. And I believe she was a first grader. And then there was one other student who was a junior high age student that went from a 575 to a 645, which was really incredible, I felt like. And then reading, there was a score of 170. And then in the post-test, it went up to a 340. So I'm super great, happy about that. And then also a 390 to a 480. There was only one student out of the 14 that completed the tutoring hours that did not make growth. She stayed at a 100, but I felt like it was an okay thing because we were able to take that data, give it to her current teacher, and so she could take her to the intervention team first thing. She didn't have to wait on data. She didn't have to wait on test scores. We had that already for her. So I felt like that was a really, it ended up being an okay thing. I mean, sometimes that happens and we want to get her the help she needs. And we feel like hopefully that we can do that sooner with the data we were able to give to the teacher. So, and then I was actually able to contact families 3 times, and I was really grateful because I was able to talk to them before school started and provide them with school supplies, clothing, hygiene products. It was a great opportunity. I can't say there's not a lot of people that say that they can do this for families, and be able to provide this service. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I have to say thank you to Jamie for giving me the opportunity. It was a really great experience getting to know these families on a very personal level. And I even reached out to a few of you to help me because they needed help. And I was able to reach out to community members and try and help them the best I can. So, yeah, that's what we did this summer. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs.
Thank
Carpenter.
you, Ms. Carpenter.
Who do these students go to now that Mrs. Carpenter's not in? I was just going to ask, who do the students go to now that you aren't available anymore? Like
Jamie.
Jamie?
So that was my last phone call to them.
Okay.
Because some of them I really did get to know quite well. And I was able to say, hey, now, that September 18th, I believe, is when I went back to Jamie. And so they can contact her. So, and then the secretaries were told, so they know to contact Jamie instead of me.
What were some of the biggest obstacles the families had?
The families, well, we have such an array. Some families are living with families, so they're living with grandma and grandpa. Those are the lucky ones. Some live in travel trailers in people's backyards. One family lives in a tent. I don't believe they are living in a tent anymore because of the cold weather, but they were able to get housing. My biggest challenge was one family that was in a hotel that kept moving, and I had to keep finding them. And so that was probably the biggest challenge. they're just trying. And yeah, we weren't able to actually tutor those girls because they kept moving and it was hard. But I was always able to, well, towards the end I wasn't, but throughout the summer I was able to make contact with them. We knew they were being fed. I was able to provide clothes and diapers even through community donations for their younger children, because we don't provide that. They're not, a school age thing, but so, yeah.
Well, thank you.
Thanks.
Do you guys have any questions?
I don't, thank you.
Thank you for your work on that. And Jamie is our part of her position is our McKinney Venture coordinator. So that's why she would take over from here and coordinate those efforts throughout the year.
Did you want to do the child nutrition, or is that just for us to
That's
look
just
at?
for your information there. Yeah.
Do you call to the audience, Brandy? Is there anybody? No? Future board items, anyone?
Yeah, I have two. Unless Daryl has.
I don't have. Here you go.
All right. Okay, so I have two things I would like to be brought up, hopefully for potential study session in November. The first one was, many of you know in the audience that I work with the Shoal Youth Foundation. I'm the MC for their annual banquet and all of that. And it was brought to my attention earlier this week that we had several of our organizations that did not spend money that was awarded to them last year. It wasn't this most recent last year, it was 2 years ago. And I was a little frustrated as a board member because I get a lot of people who say, hey, we don't have these items, we need equipment, we need all these kind of things. And then the Shoal Youth Foundation does an amazing job of trying to bridge that gap that the school district does. And there was a several $1,000s that was kind of left on the table for the athletic program at the junior high. And when I went to and talked to one of the administrators about that, their first response was, well, how am I supposed to spend that money? And so I talked to the Shoal Youth Foundation, and they have a great manner in which the organizations can spend the money. And so we kind of got that cleared up. But it got me thinking about various times where, like, Mr. Gillespie came here and other people who've talked to me about how difficult it is sometimes for our teachers and staff to have to get reimbursed through our procurement process. And so I did a little bit of digging. I found a procurement card program out of Flagstaff, and then I also found one of our local government entities, their procurement card policy, and they're able to get revenue of like anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000 as like a rewards type program. So I would like to have on this study session for November to talk about us moving from a reimbursement type of procurement for travel and training and for all that kind of stuff, and kind of move into more of a modern era of giving our faculty and our staff members and those credit cards that they can expend and utilize those and kind of do it a lot quicker and easier and possibly gain some revenue for the district. So I have that documentation here. I'm assuming Mrs. Beecroft will be the one who kind of takes that project. So I'll get with those with you. And then the second item I would like to be placed on the agenda is, again, I've been doing some discussing with various people in the audience, in the community, and they've brought to my attention that we have a lot of student athletes who are being cut from some of our programs. And I've also serve on the city council, and I know that we've been developing an after-school program in conjunction with the city of Shoal Low, and I would like to have either an update on how our after-school program's going, and kind of lead into a discussion to see if we can, instead of cutting so many kids on our athletic programs, if we might be able to enable the coaches the opportunity to keep more kids, and kind of what's preventing that from occurring, whether it's lack of resources, lack of funding. And then I would be willing to kind of work with Mr. Brimhall and the Shoal Youth Foundation and try to figure out a way that we can enable our own athletic program to kind of bolster this after-school program that we're trying, that's in its infancy, I believe, that we're trying to get off and running, and see how we can all kind of work together on that. So I'd like those two items to be added to the agenda so we can discuss those in our study session in November.
Yeah, got it.
Perfect.
Anything, Daryl? Okay, thanks, Mr. Clerk. Item 3.6, NAVIT report from Mr. Weber.
Well, good evening. It's always good to return to Shoal Low schools and give my annual report. Grateful for a relationship with your school administration, Superintendent Housley. Grateful to work with Ben at the high school. I want you to know that working with your CTE director, Brian Taylor, and Aaron Trampman, great people to work with in the CTE department. And we're just excited about the new year. And so I wanted to be here to just give you a brief update. Vanessa, if you want to go ahead and jump to slide 5 where it says 2 primary purposes, that'd be great. Just want to remind everybody that we exist for 2 main reasons. The first is to bring a funding stream into Show Low Unified School District that comes in to directly help your career and tech ed programs. You have some great programs here, and we'll review those in a minute. And so bringing that funding is the main reason we exist. And the second, of course, is for those students who have time to leave for half a day and attend the community college, we have some additional career and tech ed programs that are available to them. But the reality is most of the career and tech ed that happens for your students is right here at Show Low High School. So if we could jump over to the slide 9 so that I can just go over the finances real quick. I know that for some that may not be able to see that number, but our estimated number for this year for FY21 is just under $300,000. It's $291,184. We've only got just a couple of data submissions, so obviously those numbers can change, but that's going to be pretty close. And so with that amount for FY21, that brings Show Low Unified up to $7,450,000 that has come in from you being a part of NAVIT. Show Low joined NAVIT in our very first year, and so you've been with us 21 years. So we're excited about that, those numbers coming in. So with that approximate $300,000, where does that go? What do we do? What do we do with that money? And so if you could, Vanessa, go into the next slide there. And so your programs then here, and I'm particularly excited for Show Low District because you've been able to add some programs this year, and that's hard to do in this environment. Very few districts have been able to add a program. In fact, if anything, most of our districts have dropped a program or 2 in recent years. And so if we look at the list there, you've been able to add your automation and robotics, your sports medicine program, animation. And so what in grand total then, Show Low High School has 10 programs. So for a 3A school, you have the most programs of any 3A school that we serve with NAVIT. So I'm excited about that because that's going to bring in extra funding to your school. The more programs you have, the more students you're able to serve, and that generates more funding. And just to remind you, just roughly speaking, for every student that you have in a career and technical education class, that generates about $900 of M&O. And so we're excited for that. Now, we wish that we could count every student, meaning it's easy for a student to take sometimes more than one CTE class, but they'll only allow you to capture that once. And so once again, that's why we're here, is to bring funding into your high school, into these programs. We appreciate your faculty. They're always willing to participate in the certifications because that is a requirement since 2015 legislature. Every program that you offer, it has to lead to some type of certification, whether that's a state or a national or industry recognized credential. And so all of them are always willing to do that. Your new teachers, you have several there. They've already been signed up for the instructional best practices through our program director. She offers professional development. Go ahead and advance on there, Vanessa, please. This is just a brief list of the central programs that your students have access to. The cosmetology, medical assistant, nursing assistant, auto tech, welding, and fire science. So those are available to the students that have time to leave for several hours and come over to the college campus. Go ahead, Vanessa. And just on that slide, it's a brief reminder that we have $301 that we're able to spend on your faculty, whether that's through professional development. If it helps them certify their students in a credential, we can pay the registration fees and the travel costs associated with that. We also are able to pay your teachers for curriculum development. So say In animation, they've added 2 new standards. Your teacher, that takes time to add that into the curriculum. We're able to pay them for that. They just have to keep a log. We have a very simple form they fill out. We pre-approve it, and we're able to pay them $25 an hour. And so we're excited about those opportunities. We also, through that 301 fund, we're able to give a CTSO, a Career and Technical Student Organization stipend. So, for example, Mr. Marsh, when he does his Skills USA CTSO activities, we're able to give him a stipend to do that. So once again, we're grateful for your faculty and staff. Your students are very well served here, and for you to be able to add programs in this kind of climate, that says a lot of your administration for their vision and strategic planning to make that happen. That's a whirlwind tour of our update for NAVIT. I'd be happy to entertain any questions that you might have.
How many students does Sholo have enrolled right now in NAVIT?
I'm sorry, say that
How
again?
many students are enrolled right now in NAVIT programs?
It's right in around 30, between 25 and 30 in your essential programs. We have, right here in Sholo, we've got 5 of those 6 programs. Some of your students do come over to fire science. Occasionally, you've been a great supporter of that program, but everything else is offered right here in Sholo, between the auto and weld shop over by the air park, and then the health-based programs and hairstyling here at the White Mountain campus.
Have any questions?
Oh, thank you
No,
very
thank
much.
you,
This
Mr.
is a
Weber.
great partnership, so thank you for that.
Well, thank you once again. We appreciate your staff, and I do want to do a shout out for Calvin McNeil. He's our board member. He represents your district on our board. He's very, very faithful. Appreciate him. So thanks so much for having me tonight. Be safe.
Thank you. You too. Item 4.1, discussion and approval of proposed changes to district learning program. Mr. Hosley.
Madam President, for this one, I think I'll go down so I don't have to twist my neck at you. I'm going to go down and talk to you in front of you, if that's okay. Oh, Mr. Weber left his phone. Did he already leave?
Yeah.
Madam President, members of the board, I am pleased to have this opportunity to visit with you this evening about some proposed changes to our at-home. I want to first thank you for the time that you took to listen to the staff in our last work session, to hear their concerns and to kind of help guide this process. We value your input and your feedback as we went to work as an administrative team to try to figure out how you could take the experience that parents were having at home, the experience our teachers were having, and the experience that we were having at the school overall to try to pull together the issues and figure out what a solution for that might be. We feel like we've come to a pretty good solution. Can't say that it'll be without fault. There might be some hiccups along the way, but we feel like we at least have something in place that can bring some relief to some of those things that were weighing us down for the first 9 weeks. And if we'll just kind of scroll through. Vanessa, if you can get me to the next one there. Some of the things that we were challenged with is our distance learning. Initially, we didn't know what the target number of kids were that were going to come back to school, right? How many were going to be at home? How many were going to be here? We had an idea, but 80% said they would come back. That was pretty close, but we weren't really sure what that meant and what it looked like in the classroom when it really boiled down to it. And so we found some inherent obstacles, to have a teacher teach distance learning and synchronously and have students in front of them. It might have been an okay experience, not pleasant, but if you had 4 or 5 kids in there, that might have been okay. But when you have 15 kids sitting in front of you and 5, 10, whatever online, even more, that was really cumbersome, and it was a difficult thing for teachers. The experience on the home side too was very difficult. We have bandwidth problems in the mountain. We had device issues, supply chains, for instance. We have 1,000 computers that we ordered in July that it won't be here until November, maybe. And so we had a lot of things that just presented hardships for everyone involved in this process. And so we feel like we've come to a good solution. White Mountain Institute K5, that K5 program, one of the biggest challenges with that was it was centered on the home and families being able to interact with their K5 students who had to be at home. There was an online component, but there was also an offline component that was built into that. Calvert experienced a supply chain issue, and to date, even today, we're in negotiations to get refunds for those things that we were contractually obligated to because they didn't deliver. They only delivered the offline material for fifth graders. And so you imagine how frustrating that could be for a parent. We do recognize that that was different or very difficult. In the change in plans with K5, though, we do have some families that got their material and they were really excited about the Calvert program. So if they choose to stay in the Calvert program, we're certainly going to allow them to maintain that. Do we have the site licenses already purchased? The material, we were assured that it left their warehouse somehow. It just showed up at their warehouse and is being sent out today. So we're hopeful that that'll be in by the time fall break ends. We anticipate a very small number of people that would want to continue with that Calvert program. But one of the criteria for that K5 piece that was an obstacle, and hats off to parents who said, we made a commitment for a semester, we're going to be in this commitment come whatever obstacle. Y'all can fill in the blanks, right? And they did, and they were committed to that, even if it was a horrible experience. And so I think right now these changes will allow them to go ahead and make the decision to either stay there or become a traditional distance learning student. This next slide, this is still in the development, but we've purchased some Calvert things, and there is a trend around in the world of education now around a term called microsites. And we feel like there's an opportunity here to pilot a program, and the pilot would be we would start off with 2 families to be able to do this, perhaps those who choose to stay in Calvert and have the desire to do this. Maybe it wouldn't even be from our district. It would be somewhere through White Mountain Institute, which, remember, our boundaries in our White Mountain Institute are the state of Arizona. So we can actually pilot this somewhere outside of our district. But the pilot would offer families the desire to participate in this unique program that allows maybe my wife stays at home and is working with my kids in distance learning and has the ability to have more kids in our home to do that with them. And our neighbors are both working parents, and they have 3 or 4 kids at home that can't go. They don't want them to go into school. You can't leave them at home because we all know what happens when kids are left at home trying to do distance learning. That was part of our experience over 9 weeks. And then those kids could come to, hypothetically, my home, and my wife could help them with their distance learning and other things. It's a trend that's out there. It's one that we could explore. We have the resources to do it. It's self-directed by that person in that home, with a reporting mechanism back to the director of the White Mountain Institute. And so we feel like we're gonna explore that a little bit, pilot up to 2 sites, and see if it even works for us. If it doesn't, well, we're no worse off. If it does work, we're able to offer a solution for working families who don't feel comfortable with having their kids back in the classroom yet. And I think that would be a good way to relieve some of the pressure. So let's go ahead and move on to the core changes. So at the K5, I know as it was shared out with the teachers, this was one thing that was celebrated. If you were a distance learning teacher in a physical classroom with kids in front of you, beginning October 19th, you no longer will be teaching distance learning classes. There was you would guess there would be some resistance to that, but there wasn't any resistance to that. I think they were happy to know that. With that, though, we do need to let you know, with the changes that we're proposing, there will not be synchronous learning between the distance learning students and a classroom teacher. That just, we don't have the resources to do that in a way that wouldn't be frustrating. So we're going to go ahead and back that off and utilize the programs that are online that we already have in-house that we feel like are reputable, and we can use them to meet the needs of the kids until they're able to come back to our sites. So a teacher, in fact, we have 2 teachers who were teaching White Mountain Institute K5. Those 2 teachers will assume all distance learning students in the K5 realm. That's about 150 students-ish. We'll have a better number once the 19th comes around, because there are some that are coming back to school, and we just need to recognize who those are. But about 150, and we might say, well, that seems like a heavy load. We've visited with them, and it could be. We'll keep a close ear to it for the first couple of weeks and see how it is. Essentially, what their function will be is to manage the online programs, ensuring that the parents can successfully enter into them, making sure that the scope and sequence is outlined, and just track the progress of those students as they move through. Not that we're a model of any other online academy that's out there, but there are some online academies that because that's the relationship with the teacher and the students, where I'm just monitoring their progress through the online environment, that the ratio is 100 to 1. And that can be managed in some cases. We don't want it to be that high, so it is lower than that, but we also recognize that there's some things. They're not doing synchronous learning. They don't have the burden of the attendance that they had in the White Mountain Institute, which had to track minutes involved. Now that they're distance learning students, we don't have to do that. And they just have to manage these programs: Accelerated Reader, Study Island, Open Court Reading, iExcel, Mystery Science, Generation Genius, and Exact Path will be programs that will be available to the students participating in distance learning. Now, if I have a student that struggles a little bit, and Stacy has a student who excels a little bit, these programs allow those students to progress through the modules and things at a rate that is more fitting to them. So I think that's going to be a benefit to those families. And it can be self-directed by the students a little bit more, and not have to have that parent's hand there all the time when they have other things that they might need to do. Also, as you go down, students participate in distance learning now Monday through Thursday, whereas White Mountain Institute, that portion, that was 24/7, 365, they could participate in that. So their schedules now, if they choose to be in distance learning, will mirror that of our traditional classrooms. At the Sholo Junior High, and one thing I want to point out as we go through all of these options, we're going to be maintaining Google Classrooms. We have students who have had COVID-like illnesses or exposures to someone that might have had COVID, and they've been asked by the county to isolate for 10 days. What do you do with that student if they're out of class for 10 days? Well, we need a solution, so they need to be able to tap into that Google Classroom so that they can stay on board and moving forward. And that's really important here. At the junior high, Mr. Monet has spent the last couple of days organizing this distance learning online piece for the distance, or the Google Classroom for the distance learners. They'll participate in Edgenuity, and again, there won't be any synchronous learning, so the distance learning teachers won't be teaching that. You can take the standards in Edgenuity and align them to our BT standards, and so those have been aligned and ready to go. Students participating at home, there will no longer be assigned to a schedule of courses which coincide with in-person learning. They will be assigned a schedule of courses, including electives, when they decide to return. So I'll participate as a distance learner at the junior high with the core courses, and I'll progress through those. When I go back into the junior high, I'll be given a unique schedule based on where the capacity is and what my needs are. Having them assigned to those classes right now, it just creates an unnecessary burden. So we're going to pull that away. Google Classrooms will be maintained. And then, this plan and all the plans have been kind of reviewed for some of the pitfalls that might have been in there by our staff or portions of our staff. And then at the high school, Those of you who have high schoolers, you would have seen in the last week a little survey come home and say, do you want to choose distance learning or do you want to be on site? That was your choice, and you had to choose one or the other. I think we had a novel idea on how to get kids to feel more like a junior college experience, and I thought it was founded in good sound principles. However, we knew there was a chance that not all high school students would adapt well to that, and I think our first grading period proved that. I don't have the exact number, but it was well over 500 students had at least one F, which would indicate that they weren't participating or as they should have. And so I think having families determine whether I'm going to be a distance learning student or I'm going to go to in-class is going to help eliminate some of those that might have been back and forth and just, I don't know if you could say they were playing both sides of the, but they certainly, hopefully we can bring more focus to that. Reduce the fluidity and inconsistencies for on-campus learning. At-home students primarily will move through Edgenuity with a single point contact. The at-home students' schedules will be personalized with options for in-person, for CTE and other classes. One thing we don't want to do is have a family like mine, my child participates in NAVIT, which is off campus. But if he was participating in a photography or a wood shop or something like that and chose to be distance learning and couldn't come to campus, we don't want to cut those programs off at the knees. As you heard Mr. Weber just visit with us about the impact of having students in those classes. So a student and family could choose to be distance learning, but come on for their woodshop class, come on for their band, come on for photography or any number of other classes. But they would have had to select that, and Mr. Marchand and his staff have been working through those. Last time I checked with him, there's about 90 distance learning students who have specifically selected 90. Did that number change much? About 90. So that's about where we are. The primary goal is to improve the learning and focus for both on campus and at home. Parents will know their kids are supposed to be at home or at school, and we'll know that they need to be at home or at school. And we'll have maybe a little less loitering around town in the times when classes probably should be going on. Is there anything else at the bottom there? Okay. The White Mountain K12 offering will continue to offer their scope of online offerings, and that'll be through Edgenuity 9 through 12, just like we have been operating. If a child chooses to go to White Mountain Institute, they may choose to do that, but they wouldn't necessarily choose that if they had the intention of graduating from Show Low High. If they want to go the White Mountain Institute route, they will graduate as Mavericks, and that's a good option for some. But I know Mr. Marchand's staff has been really careful to make sure people understood if I'm going to choose that option, and I was a senior and went through 4 years at Show Low High School, that I'm choosing that option knowing that I'm going to not participate in Show Low High School graduation. And so I would participate in the White Mountain Institute graduation. And then those who are at home, provide coaches at home, the parents, family members need to ensure that those students are making progress in their classes. I want to just point out this because it's important for us to all recognize K-8 is a different story than 9-12. We've just finished 9 weeks of class, and there are some students that are struggling at the high school level. If they don't make a course change right now, and I don't mean getting out of one class and getting into another, I mean their decision to their education, there's a high likelihood that within 9 weeks, they'll have to go into credit recovery. High school graduation is based on credit attainment, and if they don't earn the credits, they can't graduate. And so I just want to echo that tonight so that everyone knows that, right now, figure out where your child is and encourage them to get on the ball with making sure that they have their grades in check, because we don't want any surprises. And if you have a 40% right now in high school and you're going to get a credit in December, 9 weeks sometimes isn't enough make that happen. And we don't want someone to be caught off guard or left in May not being able to graduate because they were a half credit short. And so this is the time to make those adjustments. I do have all the administrators here. If you have any questions for them about the process or what it looks like at their sites, certainly they'll entertain some questions too.
When would we transition everybody over? When would we do the transition?
All of this will take place October 19th, the day Monday when we come back from fall break.
Okay.
Well, that's been communicated via multiple letters. There's been phone calls and communications with those who are selecting the distance learning piece. It will most adversely affect those who are selecting distance learning. The teachers that will be running that K5 have been working, trying to get all that together so that when we're ready to go that first day, as I mentioned, Mr. Monet has been working with 6-8 to get that in line. And then Mr. Marchant and his staff have been working, the counselors have been working with those students. I believe Mr. Marchant, an example, his team called all 90 of those students to outline their schedules and make sure that they were ready to go for the 19th. So the transition is ready. We just need your blessing on it tonight.
You guys have any questions?
Appreciate all the work that was put into it. Looks good.
See by the smiles, you guys are for it. You guys want to talk about it anymore? You want to entertain a motion to approve the changes to district learning platform?
I move we make the changes. Let's go.
Yeah, I'll second it with just the statement. I think that I appreciate Mr. Housley and the administrative team for doing this. I think that we're in a global pandemic and we've never faced this before. And for us to recognize that this far into the school year and to kind of make these necessary changes, I think it speaks volumes to our team that we have and that they're willing to kind of take the input from the teachers and from the parents and to make those course changes are necessary. And I applaud you for being willing to do that. Some districts and other, in outside of teaching, people would kind of dig their heels in and say, no, this is what we're going to do and we're going to make it work. You just have to figure it out. And I think that we recognized that what we were doing wasn't working and that we wanted to move in the right direction. So I applaud you as a superintendent, as administrators to take that feedback and to make these changes. And so I appreciate that. I do. And I think I echo what I said before. We're all in this together. We're all trying to educate our kids and our community, and we want what's best for them. And so I think this is a move in the right direction to do what we have been charged with doing, and that's educating our children.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 5.1, approval of resignations, retirements, and terminations. Mr. Mosley.
Madam President, members of the board, for your consideration this evening, we had a resignation of the health tech from Nicholas Homestead, Shauna Swigert, and we ask for your approval of that this evening.
Entertain a motion.
Real quick, will this position be filled? Are we advertising for it, or how are we going to do that?
It currently is.
I'll move to approve the resignation, retirements, and termination.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 5.3, approval of substitute. Mr. Hosley.
Oops, I opened the wrong one. I apologize.
We need
Madam President,
5.2.
5.2.
Do 5.2, sorry. Item 5.2, approval of new hires, renewals, and transfers.
So we have a number for you this evening. Tina Gray, Human Resource Specialist and Title IX Coordinator. That Title IX Coordinator is per the new Title IX, the additions to Title IX, which is a federal statute. This includes the Title IX Coordinator has to be designated, and they will handle cases of harassment or things like that. So Luis Esparza, custodian at the junior high. Lori Jackson, there you go. Mr. Clark, health tech at the, if you approve it, yes, we'll have it. Jenna Kittle, student practicum, assigned to Ms. Chris Jones, who's here with us this evening. And Daniel John, bus driver. Pamela Clark, custodian. Melissa Hyde, Dyke, which is paraprofessional 1, Kelly Weeks, paraprofessional 1, Stephanie Bonilla, paraprofessional 1, Caitlin Judd, paraprofessional 2, and Rebecca, Bukoya, custodian at Whipple Ranch. We bring these for your approval this evening.
I'll make a motion to approve new hires and transfers.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item 5.3, approval of substitutes.
We are grateful to have these individuals consider subbing in our district. We certainly can use all that we can get. Ida Carpenter, Marilyn Wheeler, Dion Pugh, Lorna McDonald, and then classified Nancy May and Jennifer Cabrera. I bring those for your approval this evening.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the substitutes that they've been outlined.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 6.9. No.
5.4.
Item 5.4, approval of stipends, volunteers, and event workers.
Madam President, these are in your board book, and there are a number of them, so I won't read them all off, but we do bring these sports and regular stipends, event workers, and volunteers for your approval this evening. There are a number of coaches and other volunteers there.
I'll move to approve the stipends, volunteers, and event workers as they've been outlined.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item 6.1, policy, I lost it. Gotta wait for me now. Policy BGB, emergency adoption to discuss and adopt policy ACA and ACAA. Mr. Helsley.
Madam President, members of the board, board policy BGB, which is the board policy, your policy that dictates or governs you as a governing board, says that under certain circumstances, we can do an emergency adoption of a policy that doesn't have to go through a first and a second reading. And tonight, there's two of these on our agenda, but the first one tonight for your approval and consideration is policy ACA, ACAA, and those are sexual harassment policies and the Title IX sexual harassment component. Both of those have a date of implementation, which was, I believe, August 15th. It is a recommendation from ASBA, our policy managers, to do this in an emergency adoption without first and second reading, because there's not much we can change to Title IX or anything else. So I would ask for your approval of this policy so that we can move forward and have this on the books.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 6.2, discussion and approval of first reading of advisories 672 through 676.
There's just a few involved in here. So when we talk, most of these are just general changes because the law changed or there needed to be wording change. Nothing real heavy in there. This is for the first reading, so we'll have another month to review anything that we would like to change if we do want to change anything in them. The basic instructional program there. I do want to pull out of these alerts. They all came together, but policy, the piece that has to do with our policy GCQE, I do want to pull that out, not for consideration, because that does not reflect our leave policy that is there. And so I would like to have that relieved there. It also does say in policy BEC, executive sessions and open meetings, is something that applies to you. It does give some discretion on being able to discuss safety plans and other things in executive session. That wasn't one of the items that we could have discussed in executive session before, but if we wanted to hold an executive session where we will bring our whole emergency operation plan before you and discuss it, that can be done in executive session. So we don't have to discuss it amongst everyone else. And then the part there, AMD, that is a response to legislation that requires suicide prevention training take place within the district, and that outlines that for us. One of the things that you'll see on this, and you'll see on your high school student's ID card, it requires that there's a suicide hotline or other information related to suicide prevention on that. Ours will be on a sticker. We didn't have them made in there, so that does require that. So any questions about these? I do bring them for your approval. The parts on this on student and visitors, the school, it just addresses face.
That's what I was wondering with GBR. So we're going to now mandate every person attending any activity on a school property. And I mean, so this meeting, we would all have to wear face masks, whether we're practicing, whether we're social distancing or not.
That's the way that the model policy rolls out, and certainly between the first and the second reading, we can adjust that to match what we have in place as far as what we require.
I don't like this the way that it's listed. I mean, that's where I have a problem with it. So I would like to see it amended to kind of what we're dealing with currently now with our, because I mean, I don't think that this mirrors our policy at this district as it stands.
Right, it doesn't. And they have another policy that our attorney can, another rendition of this that our attorney can provide us. I'll make sure that you get that so that you can consider it during the second reading.
I guess with that, then I'll move to approve the first reading of policy advisory 672 through 676.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 6.3, discussion and approval of first reading of policy IHA, basic instructional program. Mr. Halsey.
This one reflects out the Sandra Day O'Connor Day, Civics Education Day, in which you have to take the majority of one day, either September 25th or the day before or the day after if you're not in session, to utilize the majority of the instructional day for civics education. And that was passed in the last legislative session. We did see civics education around our district on the Monday following the 25th. The 25th fell on Friday, which we don't have kids here. So it was the following Monday we did do that. In some cases, district-wide, I don't think we saw it as the majority of our day, but we did make an effort to implement this statute because it did come into law prior to this policy being in front of you. So we do need to approve this into our policy manual.
I move to approve 6.3.
I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item 6.4, approval of first reading of policy advisory 651 through 669 as recommended by the Arizona School Board Association.
There's a few in here I want to pull up just if I can pull it up. Sorry. 651 changes. I'm just going to go briefly through these, not spend a lot of time, but 651 reflects legislative changes. No major changes to that. Public participation in board meetings. Nothing real glaring there. We currently do not have any for 652, which is DJE, bidding and purchasing procedures. Currently do not have any specific criteria for bid submittals. There is a suggestion in there to really clarify if you have a form you want them to fill out, what that is. We'll be looking at those processes. We may bring the exhibits to you at a later time so that we can outline if we want a vendor to fill out a certain form or a certain thing. It does give that suggestion, and I think it's a good suggestion. So we'll bring that in the future. Clarifying language in 653 changes political and personal agenda as far as staff ethics. 654, staff reporting requirements, maintaining records and posting on websites. That has to do with staff conduct and regulations. 656, just some clarifying language. 657 clarifies 15 days. Currently in our contract language, it says 15 days, but it asked us to clarify that in actual policy. So we're going to write that in policy so it mirrors what it says in our contract language. So from the day of issuance of contract to return, that's 15 days. Otherwise, they forfeit that offer of employment. The 655 is new, and it has to do around using technology while driving. We all know it's a state law. We all know you can't text or call while you're on the phone or while you're driving, but this policy reflects the change to that law. And that'll be that. Okay, 658, this is important because previously we didn't have to have employees specifically say that if they had something that was expunged from their record, vacated or set aside, it was a felony, we didn't have to have them declare that. Now it requires that they declare that upon offer of employment. So as part of the background check. So there are some pieces in there. I want to pull 659. We need to review that for further consideration. So if we'll just keep that out of this. Additional language and background for background investigations, that's pretty similar to 658 with 661. IHA also in 662 outlines dyslexia education and training that some of our teachers are required to have. So IHA changed 3 times. So that's why it's there multiple times. Suicide prevention training, that's 663, that's going to be out for emergency adoption. Half credit course in economics, and then the rest are just some clarifications other than 668, which is additional requirements for school to conduct vision screenings. If there's anything as board members you want to advocate for on the state level, is when they continue to make legislative requirements on schools that are unfunded mandates, they're required to do something outside of the scope of our responsibility. Our responsibility is to teach kids and to have to do vision screenings, hearing screenings. They can say loosely that it refers back to the student's educational success, which we could agree on, but it's really a function of the Department of Health Services, not the function of a public school system. And so this is one of those mandates that came out that require us to do vision screenings for all of our kids. And then 669 provides protections for individuals in supervisory positions who reasonably believe a mandatory report has been made. So under mandatory report before, if Stacy works as a teacher and I'm the principal, she comes and tells me that there's something that needed to be reported, I would want to ensure that was reported, and both of us would make sure that was reported. If Stacy didn't report it, I would report it. This basically clarifies that if Stacy comes in and says, I'm going to report it, I can reasonably assume and be protected by the fact that she's going to report it. And if she fails to, I'm not held liable for her failure to report. Whereas in the past, if she failed to report and she told me about it and I didn't report, both of us would be potentially up for a mandatory report violation. So that's the outline of all those policy advisories. I bring them to you for your first reading this evening.
I'll make a motion to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 6.5, approval of emergency adoption of policy IHAMD.
This specifically outlines suicide prevention and training. Just ask that the whole policy is brand new. There's nothing that we really can change from it. It directly reflects legislation and ask for your emergency adoption.
Do we have the training available? I mean, do we have people who are competent and able to provide this training?
Yeah, we had it procured and ready to go, and then COVID threw that off a little bit, so we've been delayed. Jamie, do you have an update of what that looks like right now? we were waiting. They were trying to push that online and do kind of a train the trainer type of piece, but it does mandate that we train all of our personnel who work with kids 6th through 12th grade. And it's a sensitive topic, so we want to make sure that the training goes out in a sensitive manner, but empowers our teachers with some.
Is that through ADE or county or?
The initial training was going through the county. Yeah.
Have any more questions? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve of emergency adoption policy IHAMB.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 7.1, bond update.
Madam President, members of the board, this last month we haven't had any real progress on anything new with the bond. We've kind of had to tap the brakes on that a little bit so that we can focus on all the things that we just made changes are, and with our tech department and other things inundated with that, we felt like it would be just better to hold off on making any further decisions around the intercom exploration that they were doing or other things like that. So, where we're at.
How's it when's the gym going to be ready to go? Do you guys have a date on that?
So I always hesitate to say something because you say something and then it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But the gym should be done in the next by the end of the 3rd week in October. We're hoping that that's wrapped up. Our goal is to have the volleyball team be able to play their last couple games on their home floor. They've been able to use it for practice and stuff, but they're currently working. They're trying to get the beam in so that they can attach the bleachers. Even if they can get one side attached and we can just cordon off the other side and put fans in one side and have the volleyball team play, that's our goal. We want to get them in there and be able to play some of their games for the season. The junior high roof and stuff like that you've seen construction on there, they should be done by the end of the week. And the new playground at Whipple Ranch should be installed by the end of fall break. And hopefully we're wrapping up some of the projects and start moving forward with some of the other projects.
Will that mean Mrs. Clark doesn't have any more construction at her building?
Oh, I don't know. There's a lot to do in that building.
I saw a few roofers over there today.
We are going to put in a building renewal grant to attempt to replace the bleachers in the gym at the junior.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
They're in rough shape.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Housley. Item 8.1 through 8.5, consent agenda. Mrs. Beecroft.
So for your approval, and there's attachments with the details. We have the 8.1 ratification of the expense vouchers, 8.2 ratification of the payroll vouchers, 8.3 approval of Whipple Ranch Elementary PTSO, 8.4 approval of the governing board minutes for September 10th, 2020, last board meeting, and 8.5 approval of donation.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda, and also looks like Mr. Marchin's out, but I'd like to make sure that all of the people who've donated to our school, that they are recognized and that we let them know that we appreciate them and everything that they do. I think a theme I've consistently said over this is we are a community and we have to it takes a village to educate children, and we can't do it without them and they can't do it without us. So we appreciate our donors.
Absolutely. And Mr. Clark, on that, we do these names spend the month on our website on the front page.
Great.
And we do want to recognize them there too. And you're right, we've had huge donations. We didn't get to have prom last year. We didn't get to do a lot of fundraising as far as that's concerned. And the kids that are doing that for this year to make sure prom happens and other things, people have been very generous, and the efforts that the kids have been able to put in place have been received well, even in a tough time. And we recognize these are sacrifices. Donations are sacrifices, and we do appreciate it.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys.